Hello and welcome. This is going to be our lecture video for April 14th. We're going to be talking today about some more concepts with statistics for our statistics bootcamp. The main things we've been looking at with data have been different measurements of central tendency and spread. And we saw two of them already. We saw that we could measure spread with something called range, and we could measure central tendency with something called mode. Well, we're going to look at two more ways to measure central tendency today with median and mean. So median is the first one we're going to look at. Median is the middle of a data set. Now, to quickly find the middle, it's really helpful if the data set is already organized from smallest to largest. When there's an odd number of numbers in our data set, the median just is the middle number. But we run into a slight issue when there's an even number. We need to average the two middle numbers. So if we're trying to find the middle of this, we could come in 3 from this side and 3 from this side. And we would see that 4 and 5 are both in the middle, so we just split the difference and make it 4.5. A way to always find the middle of two numbers is to add them together and divide by 2. Okay, so here we've got some data. We're going to try to find the median of this data. Well, what's making this really difficult is that this data is just sort of all over the place. We have an individual that slept 10 hours, right next to an individual that slept 6.25, then back up to 8.5. So before we can find the median, we need to organize from smallest to largest. This is going to help us if we want to do anything else with this data too. So the very smallest number is a 4.75. All right, now I'm going to go through, crossing them out as I go to organize all this data. And I'll pause the video here and finish organizing it all. All right, so here's all of our data organized. And now that it's organized, we can find the median by just crossing off from both sides. Now it's really important when you're doing this to keep track of how many you've moved in from both sides so that you can tell if you've got two numbers in the middle that you need to average or just one number. So that's why I always cross off bottom first, then top, moving my way from the inside, and I say the word "and" in my head in between each pair that I cross off. So I say 5.5 and 8.75, 6 and 8.5, 6 and 8. And this way I'll be able to tell if I've got just one number in the middle or two. All right, so 6.25 and 8, 6.5 and 7.5, 6.5 and 7.5, and I just have one number in the middle here, so no need to do any averaging. Our median is 7.25. So this is a measurement of central tendency. Although there was individuals that slept much more, like this person that slept 10, and individuals that slept much less, like this individual that slept 4.75, on average, or at least one way of taking the average, tells us that 7.25 is right in the middle. All right, if our data is given as a dot plot, you can do a very similar technique, but just crossing off the dots. Now remember, when you get to your final dot, if there's two of them, you're going to average, especially if they come from two different columns. If there's two dots in the same column, then that just is your median. And if you get just one dot, then you come down to the number line to figure out what your median is. All right, so crossing off from the end, or from both ends. All right, and you got to cross out the whole column before you can move on to the next column. So I've crossed off 3 on this side, but only 2 on this side, so I've got to get caught up. Crossing that there, so that and this and this, 69 and 72. And then the only dots left are in the bar for 70, so you don't need to cross off anymore. It's just 70 is the median. It's the middle number, which is just for your reference, that's 5 foot 10 inches, was the median height for this sample here. All right, so we went out, we got some more data. We asked a bunch of people how old they were when they got their first job, and then we created a frequency table for that. In order to find the median, it's difficult when we can't cross off the numbers, so we're going to turn this back into data by just writing out as many of the age as the frequency tells us. So I need 2 11s here. I need 5 13s written out over here. Then a 16, then 4 17s, 2 18s, and 2 22s. Now I can use the technique of crossing off from both sides. All right, and then this was a case where I did have 2 numbers in the middle. I've crossed off 7 of these numbers from the smaller side and 7 from the bigger side. And I'm left with a 16 and a 17 in the middle. So I don't write down both of those. I have to write down the number that's in between them, and that is 16.5 as my median. All right, here we've got a stem and leaf plot. In order to cross out from the both ends, we can just cross off the leaves, move left to right on the smaller side and right to left on the larger number side. But let's cross these out. So 4 and 4 cross out. 6 and 5, 7 and 8, 7 and 8, 9 and 8, 9 and 7, 0 and 5, and then this 2 is the median, but then I've got to use the key to turn it back into the actual data value, and it actually just matches the key here, so it's 12 metals is our median. All right, we can assume that that's by country. Would maybe make sense for there to be a maximum of 44. Well, no one individual has ever won 44 Olympic medals, so this is probably by country. All right, so mean, another way to take an average. And when we say average, we generally are referring to mean. So mean is the one that we're talking about if we just say average. Now, it's not, 100% correct to say that these are the same word, because when you say average, you can sometimes be talking about median, but this is just much more common. All right, so the mean takes into account every data point that is part of our data set. So if this 2 was a little bit further to the left, maybe if it was a 1, our mean would slightly adjust. So every data point matters when coming up with the mean. If we were doing the median, it wouldn't matter if this was a 2 or a 3 or a 4, the median would be 7 no matter what. But here, this is taking into account all of these numbers to come up with the mean. So here's the formula. You can pause and write this down. It's the sum of all the data points divided by the number of data points. So add them all up and divide by the number of numbers to find mean. All right, so here we've got a bunch of test scores. We want to figure out kind of what the average test score was. But the type of average we want is the mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these all up. So I can just put little pluses in here. All right, and then I'm going to take that sum and divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, I'm going to pause the video again to add all of these up. All right, when I add it up on the top, I got 423. There's still this divided by 9 on the bottom, so I'm going to divide by 9, and I get 47 exactly as our mean. And that you should check that number to make sure that it's within the range of this data, and 47 is in between a lot of these numbers. Also, it's included in the data set, which is another good sign. All right, notice I didn't have to organize from smallest to largest to find mean. All right, here I've got another one. Again, I'll pause, let you try this one. We'll see if we get the same number. All right, when I added up all the data points, I got 328.9. There are 10 data points here. So this is 32.9 minutes for our mean. And again, that's within this data set here, so that's a good sign. But mean might be really useful here because then every single second of all of these data points matters in either bringing this number down or letting this number go back up. So if this was 32.5, this number would change ever so slightly. So some people like that, so that every data point is being taken into account to its fullest effect. All right, one more. Here we've got a life expectancy for a bunch of different states. I want to find the mean of this data. And the reason I might want to do this is maybe all of these states have something in common, and then I want to compare it to other states. So knowing the average might be really important. So let's just try this one. So I'm going to do 81 plus 80.9 plus 74.3 plus 81.3 plus 81.5, 77 plus 78.6 plus 79.3 plus 77.7. So I can just do that all in one line in my calculator and I get 711.6. And there are how many data points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So divide that by 9. The number's still in my calculator, so I just hit divide by 9. And I get 79 point, we'll round that up to 1 years. Which is within this data set. It's younger than some, older than others. Okay, we'll call that good for this video. Try the mastery quizzes and have a good rest of your